Good morning students. Hello and welcome to Avyan IAS Academy. Today we'll be dealing with one more part of back to basics, which is the gerund. So this is something absolutely new which we have not taken up, and in the following we'll do gerund, participles as well as infinitives. The first part being gerund. So what are gerunds? As you can see this sentence, seeing is believing. Let us take one more example which says playing cards is not what I want. So in both the sentences, you can see that there is a verb with which we begin the sentences. One is seeing and the other is playing. So what are gerunds? We will classify these nouns as gerunds. So but they are also verb at the same time, as you can see. So in short, gerunds are our verb nouns. If we have to define what gerunds are, we can say gerunds are words which has the power of both the noun and the verb as well as ends in an ing. So this being these are the two conditions which we need for fulfilling them to be a gerund. So the first condition is that they need to end in an ing, and the second condition being they have to act both as a noun as well as a verb. Here, as you can see, the word seeing is both acting as noun as well as a verb, and there playing cards is not I want is being used in the same way. So now when we are using it in this way, often we are confronted with the question, what is the difference with the participle? However, let me tell you, there are cases in which there are not much of a difference between a gerund and a participle. It mostly depends on how we are using it in the sentences. So we can go forward with one more example which says, the example would be teaching him swimming is not easy. So this could be teaching him, as well as we are using two verbs here. The first one, teaching him swimming, here we are using this as a verb noun. This one is there, and the other example could be teach me to swim. So in both the places we are using the word teach. This is being used as a gerund, and here we are using this as a participle. So so there isn't much difference in both the sentences. So we can take up one more example where we can say to see is to believe, and in another we can say seeing is believing. In both the sentences, we are using the verbs repeatedly, which is see and believe. One we are using it as a participle, and the other we are using it as a gerund. However, there is not much of a difference in the meaning. That was the first point that we are trying to make between the difference between a gerund as well as a participle. Now we'll come to see how we can use a gerund in the active form of the verb. So we'll see how in the active form, if we are using the word loving, if we take that in the passive form, it would be having loved. So as we already have covered active and passive, we know that is how the difference happens between using the ing form of a verb and using the past participle of a verb. So here in the active form, if we are using a gerund which says loving to roam around in the garden, he took a evening stroll. In the same way, if we change this sentence into a passive form, we can say, since having loved taking a walk around the garden, he took an evening stroll. We are using the same sentence, but once we use it in the active form and then we use it in the passive form. So it's loving and having loved. So that is one of the differences we have. The next what we'll come to is the compound gerund forms. We kind of did that when we did in the passive form only, but just to make it a little more clear, we'll see what are compound gerund forms. The compound gerund forms. So in the compound gerund forms, we can also have compound words being used as gerunds. The other would be compound words used as gerunds. That also happens. For example, if we say writing table, playing board, walking stick. So this is how we are using two words. One is in form of a gerund and this is making it a compound form of a gerund. And if we want to use this same compound forms in the sentences, how we'll use it? We can say, I heard him having gained a prize. So this is a compound gerund form that we are using it. For example, we are saying, I heard him having gained a prize. This is kind of also using gerund in our passive forms. So gerunds in passive forms. You might be aware of this if you have already looked into our video in which we dealt with the active and the passive forms. In that, as we had said, in the active and the passive forms, like having gained. So always be careful that while using the ing form of one of the gerund which we are using it, we are also using the past form, past or the past participle of the other verb. So that is one example of a compound gerund form. In the next part, we'll take up what is our we'll end the class with by giving you a few giving you a few sentences which you can look at and try and answering those, and then you can let us get back to us by writing in the comments if you want the answers for those. That would be what we end with, but we also will now look at how we do the verb verbal adjectives. So so also this is not away from gerund, but like how we will be using the verbal adjectives. That would be like he is fond of playing cricket. So of course this is a gerund at the same time, but we are using the verbs. He is fond of playing cricket. Also there is one more thing. Often we see that the gerunds are preceded by a pronoun. That is also one more thing that we need to sometimes keep mind of. And the next could be if we are trying to use the same as in form of participles. If we are trying to use the same word playing as in case of participle, we will be saying playing cricket, he regained his health. So here when we are using the word playing, instead from here to here, one is being used as a verbal adjective and the other is being using it as a participle. So that is one more difference of using it between a participle as well as the verbal adjective. In the next part, we can look into the confusion which happens while using the objective forms and the possessive form of pronouns along with the gerunds. So how that happens is, there are two sentences like I hope you will excuse my leaving early. The next sentence being I hope you will excuse me leaving early. So in both the sentences it means the same thing, but we are sometimes often faced with a confusion which one is the right form of writing the sentence, that whether we should use the possessive form or we should use the objective form. However, let me tell you, both these forms are right. We can use either of them. I repeat once again that we can use both the forms. You can use both my as well as me. However, the only thing being, generally possessives are used when we are trying to appear a lot more formal in the sentences, and this is usually used in our everyday common lives. So we'll see a few more examples where we can use both the possessive as well as the objective forms. If we say, I am happy at him having won the prize. The next one could be, I am happy at he winning the prize. So in both these sentences we are using he and him, but the meaning of the sentence remains the same. At him having won the prize, and I am happy at he winning the prize. So in both these, the he or the him, whatever you are using, both are right. So that the first one is the possessive form and the second is the objective form. And both this can be used, but just as I said a little while before, the possessive forms are a little more formal than the objective forms. However, people often use this possessive forms in order to make it sound a little better, which is also quite possible. Now we'll look at the uses of gerunds. So the uses of gerunds would be, we have learnt about them certainly, but just to sum them up, how are gerunds used in our sentences? They are used as, the first, as I said, they are used as verb nouns. That is the primary utility of gerund, example of which is seeing is believing. That is the primary utility of gerund. That is what we classify gerund as that there has to be two conditions. They have to be ending with an ing form, as well as they have to have the quality of both the noun as well as the verb. We can also say hunting deer is not allowed in this country. Hunting deer is not allowed in this country. That is also another example of how we can use it as a verb noun. We can also use it as objects of transitive verbs. So transitive verbs are verbs which which completes its meaning with the utility of an object after the verb, which means the verb in itself are complete. We can say stop playing. So here it is stop playing. This meaning is complete in itself. Even if we do not add a stop playing the game or stop playing with your notebook, however, the meaning still remains complete. Hence, it's a transitive verb and we are using it as stop playing. So here this is the verb and this is our gerund. So it is being used as an object of the transitive verb. So the next could be children love making sand castles. So here we are again using it as an object of the transitive verb. So what do children love? They love making sand castles. So here it is being treated as an object of the transitive verb. Now we'll go to a few more other uses of gerunds, which will be as follows. The other utility of gerund could be objects of preposition. In the object of preposition, we can say, I am tired of waiting. So as I told you once before also, sometimes we can see that the gerunds are preceded by prepositions. So here it is being used as objects of preposition. Then we can say, he is fond of swimming. So here again we are using this as the object of preposition and it is again being preceded by the preposition. We can also say, I have an aversion to fishing. So we are using it after to. So that I hate fishing or I do not like fishing, I have an aversion to fishing. It is being used as an object of preposition, and as we suggested, it is the preposition always precedes the gerund. Now we'll go to one more utility where we will be talking about the complements of verb. That is also how gerunds can be used as complements of verb. As complements of verbs. So how will we use them as complements of verbs? Again, we can say seeing is believing. Here the verb is believing, and we are using this as a counterpart or complement, as a part of the verb in order to complete the sentence. We can also say what I detest most is playing cards. So here we are using this as a complement of detest. So this being the verb, we are using this as a complement of the verb itself. The next utility of gerunds would be while using absolutely. The next utility would be while we are using to make something as an absolute. Example, playing cards is his aversion. We played bridge. So here we are talking in absolute terms, like we absolutely hate playing cards. We did not play bridge. No, played bridge. We did not play bridge. So bridge being one of the card games, since he hated playing card games, we avoided that entirely and we did not play bridge. It is just that the one that we said, we being using them as complements of verb, it is an extension of the same thing. We are extending the same thing and we are trying to make this sound even more absolute. That is, playing cards is his aversion. That was the first part where we are already using the gerund, and the second part being we did not play bridge. So we are making this as a complement of the verb. Now we'll give you a few examples where you can try working out which of them are gerunds, which of them are participles, and at the same time you can try deciding which are the nouns, verbs, or the prepositions for which the gerunds are acting. The first sentence could be, he was found fighting desperately for his life. So this is the first example. He was found fighting desperately for his life. Hearing the noise, he ran to the window. Fearing for his life, he ran. He has ruined his sight by reading in low lights. So these are a few sentences which I'll repeat once more. He was found fighting desperately for his life. Hearing the noise, he ran to the window. Fearing for his life, he ran. He has ruined his sight by reading in low light. So some of them would be participles in the same form of the verbs. Some of them would be participles and some of them would be gerunds. So you can try identifying which of them are which, as well as you can try finding out the nouns and the verbs, and as well as the prepositions which they're complementing or you are being used as their objects. Also, you can try writing the answers below in the chat and get back to us for the answers. So that's all for today. Thank you and have a great day.